Hi, I'm Rick.
Hi, I'm Oscar.
Oscar, you've been working with app configuration, and you have something interesting to share with us, right?
Yeah, definitely. I'm not only working with app configuration, but lately, as you already noticed, I'm also doing a bit more with GEO replication and stuff like that for to have high availability of some services. And something like app configuration, I found it the hard way. At some point, one of the instances was down for like 20 minutes.
Wow, that's long. Okay.
Yeah, and that like production was fine because it wasn't scaling out or it wasn't restarting. We weren't deploying, so production was fine. But the dev department had nothing to do with it because F5 didn't do a thing.
Yeah, that's
so
not so nice.
That kind of woke us up to look into the SLAs there and what we're exactly doing. And app configuration isn't super high available, or it is pretty high available, but like there's no regional failover or anything.
No. But do you know the SLA it has? Is it 3 nines, 4?
I think it's 3 nines. I'm not sure. We can look it up. But there was an outage, and there can always be outage. I don't care how many nines you have.
True.
Like it might fall over at some point. There is an option, and there was already an option to export your keys and to import your keys, and you could make a build pipeline that does that and make some fallback logic. But now there's some more preview stuff because we like preview stuff.
We like preview stuff.
First of all, if you look here to my screen, I'm going to open the portal. I have an app configuration built. And this app configuration has at the moment, I think, 0 keys. So the app config is created. If you don't know app config, look into like 3 of our earlier videos because we love the service. We made multiple videos about it.
Yeah, true.
Last time you made with app configuration, like the
references.
References.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know that. Awesome.
And it's actually nice.
Yeah, it's really nice.
I'm now curious about app configuration references and what you're about to show.
I'm now also curious while we're saying that.
We might want to dive into that one later.
That could be interesting because that might not work if I think of how it works now. If I look at, I created a simple silly program, just .NET New with an API here, and how you would commonly set up app configuration or your configuration, your ways of configuration. At this moment, I'm just picking out the builder configuration, getting a test key out and printing that in the startup pipeline just to see what we're doing.
Yeah.
So what we can do here is do a .NET run. It will start this up and print something, and what will it print here? From app settings.json. Okay, that says something because app settings just .json has a test key, and it's using that one. So the default setup out of the box didn't do anything for it. What I want to do next is actually change the program a bit and want to connect to app configuration. So somewhere in the builder pipeline, I'm doing add Azure App configuration, and I want to, this is my endpoint, so this is the endpoint used in the service, and I want to connect. So I'm going to connect using the CLI connection.
Managed identity.
So using the managed identity, we're not going to put secrets out there. Like you have one secret to another, and then a secret to your key vault. Where do you put it? Everything managed identity. It's awesome.
Yeah.
If I run it now, what happens? Well, it's doing the same thing from app settings. Why is that? Because that secret isn't in there.
Yeah.
So also just to show,
right?
just to show it's cascading. We're going to go to app settings or app settings dev, and we can cascade a lot of things. You can change that yourself. But by default, it has the default builder in there, so all the other stuff is in there, and now app configuration will win because it's the last one.
Yeah.
But if you add multiple there or you add environment variables there, like they will win.
Yeah.
Choose how you want it to behave. So what I want to do is this is my original code to create my Bicep code to create the app configuration, and I want to add this key. So adding a key to app configuration from Bicep. is as simple as this. So the configuration stores that /key values. You reference the store where you want to put them in. You can always, if you have that in a separate, because it's separate pipeline or a separate Bicep because it's attached to your application, you probably want to do like an existing here on your
so that you know that you're picking that one.
Yeah, you're probably building that as your like core infrastructure, but this is the app and it needs this configuration key. You will probably have it somewhere else.
Just so that this is clear, this is actually the Bicep code that you can use to add settings to app configuration.
Yeah.
So this has been a question that some of my customers have been asking. How will I manage the settings that I have in app configuration? This is how.
Yeah, so and some things are a bit more like your feature toggles. You can also do that.
Yeah.
It doesn't really make sense for feature toggles because are you gonna run maybe the first time, but are you gonna enable so that they're there? But the moment you set them on, and you would deploy them with false again, it's gonna be fun. Like. So
you might get calls about
so that's
those.
really state. So there's, even though it's both app configuration, I think configuration normally is configuration. It can be part of that state, but it won't change that much. But if you're thinking like feature toggles, you will tweak in production. So be careful with those. So it ran, it built that, and if I can now do a .NET Run, I think this is even a .NET 7 thing, by the way. It will actually say still from app settings because, I don't know, that's interesting. Maybe I should save this file before I run it.
You don't have autosave enabled?
Apparently not.
Okay.
Well, I think not, if it's that. It says from app configuration. And if we look at the portal, so the configuration explorer, do a refresh there, test key, and let's show the values from app configuration. It's exactly what we expected, so that's awesome. So we were talking about GEO application.
Yeah.
Well, if you look at it properly, somewhere in the last period, this popped up and says, do you want replicas?
Yes, please.
Yes, please give me a replica. So you see the originals here. This is the original endpoint. And therefore also your interesting question about what to do with references, because this endpoint is in the reference.
Yeah.
And if you create a replica, you can create it here. You select the location because it might be nice not to do it in the same location. So let's do it in Brazil.
Does it allow you to do it in the same location?
I don't think so. I think it's will.
I hope it will be smart, right?
So, where's West Europe here? I think we have our answer.
Cool.
So it will exclude it from the list. That's even nicer than giving a warning. And then you enter your replica name. So what is your replica name? Is that the same as your .ac config? No, it's not. You can see a rep1 as the replica 1, and in the bottom you see that it generated this thing. It's always by convention, so it's original name dash replica name. So in here you also only add the differentiator for those.
Yeah, so you don't have to have a complete descriptor of that one.
Indeed, you don't have to do that. If I go back to my Bicep, because I don't want to do this in the portal, in the Bicep, you have on app configuration stores, you have a /replicas type now.
Yeah.
And on that, you give them also that short name in Bicep, and you give them the parent, which has a name. So it will do the exact same thing. I first showed it in the portal, so you know what the endpoint is going to be. So it's going to be called rep1. So if I stop the application, if I deploy this again, it will start making the endpoint. And what it will do is we will make the endpoint, provision all the data, and just move it over. It's a bit same as you do SQL failover and stuff like that.
And does it keep that in sync? So as soon as you start adding stuff, it will automatically replicate to the other one?
Yeah, and more so is that in the portal you won't see a second resource. Like with SQL, and we talked about that, you got like a replica server, everything is going there.
Yeah.
And for now it is in preview, so I don't know what this will change. But there's no actual, let me cancel this one, actual like visible new endpoint in the portal, except for here, because it just got created. It's replicated. This is the new endpoint, and that's it. Like,
and then now, how is this cost-wise? Does this double the cost?
Yeah, this happens. This is only standard, so you can only use this on standard because doubling the cost of the free tier would be fine. But
well, except for the fact that you can only have one free tier in a subscription. No, that's what Cosmos to be honest.
That's different. Yeah. No. This, you can have free tiers, but it has a maximum queries a day, like 5,000 or something. I don't know. But you can make multiple endpoints. At the moment, it's still preview, so things might change. But at the moment, it looks like it will just double your cost.
Okay.
So don't make them just all over the world just to be safe, because you will pay for it. And it makes sense. Like, the service is the same. The only thing that you don't have at the moment is this configuration pane. But it's interesting because what if it's down? You want to reach it, and you probably
but that
probably
not
this
only
stuff
that
will
one.
still work.
Not only that one, because I can also imagine parts of your configuration. If you have a GEO enabled or a across the globe enabled application, you might want to have your configuration across the globe as well. Mm-hmm. And part of that configuration presumably would be the same all over the world. So this would be an easy way of keeping those in sync.
It's not only a failover, but it's actually putting also the GEO endpoints there. So it means that we also have less latency there, less network traffic. Also there, I don't think your network traffic bill will be the problem for configuration.
No, but the latency one?
The latency definitely, especially if you're doing something chatty with it. If you're doing it on startup, you won't notice it.
No.
But
if you refresh this every 30 seconds to make sure that you're up to date with,
especially maybe using the feature manager really intensely, that might be interesting because it's being queried all the time. You have, like, what is it, the Sentinel key or something being rolled over all the time. So interesting, but how to connect to it? Because now we have two endpoints, and for the case where you want it closer for latency, you have two endpoints. Configure them both in your app service where you want it, or whatever you're using. But if you actually want to use it for failover, we don't have like a read-only or like one endpoint to connect to. So what you need for that is actually a small change in the application for now. So that also answers your question about what about those references. I don't think that will work for now. So we have a second endpoint, but what to do with the second endpoint? Because, well, endpoint 2 is new. Really,
I think I see where you're going with this. You see where
I'm going there, and it will need to connect here an endpoint. But at this moment, while typing, I don't know how it is when you're watching this, but the normal stable package doesn't have any extra overload to have multiple endpoints in there. So I am using at this moment the 5.3 preview package of the app configuration for ASP.NET Core. That does have it, and what you need to have there is a new, what is it, a list of URI, I think, or no, I can probably define it even quicker, but there's an endpoint and endpoint 2 added, and what it will do is actually connect to this both. So it will try to connect first to the first one. If it's not responding, connect to the second one. So if I would, let's say change this a bit to something that doesn't exist.
You're sure that doesn't exist?
I didn't check, but I'm almost certain that this isn't an actual app configuration endpoint, so it will throw some kind of error. What it will do now it's building, it will try to connect to that. So what I saw is like an exception for this case, because I don't know why. This is interesting, because now it's saying that it's actually failing on the auth for this one.
Maybe because it's an invalid endpoint?
Yeah.
It tries to authenticate and then that doesn't work?
Yeah, but it's interesting, like, because I have tested this before. where something that didn't exist, maybe see this to just have
It could be that the AZ config, that they changed it there also.
Could be some changes there, but I saw an exception, like a non-existing endpoint, and it would wait for 20 seconds, continue to start up. Oh, we see now here definitely a non-existing. I think it's because the DNS entry was really not existing.
And it might parse whatever you put into that URI to see if it's valid azconfig.io endpoint.
I think it's that part, because now I have a definite non-existing endpoint for this, and it's the CLI that will, or the identity that will try on azconfig. Do I have a token for that?
Yeah.
But you saw that it did start it up. This thing is definitely unreachable, and I'm still getting the app configuration. So
now, could you change it now in the primary one? The value for the...
that would be interesting experiment, I would say.
Yeah, because then I'm curious to see how fast it will be picked up by the secondary.
Go to the configuration manager, and let's add the value. Edit the value. From Rick, I'm gonna call it. I'm gonna because we want to do a bit of a race here.
That's from AppRick.
From AppRick. Okay. From AppRick? No, just from Rick. So I'm gonna update the value here. It's updating, and I'm gonna do a .NET run here. We were definitely doing that in what we think is the primary version, and it
that
says
was
from
fast.
Yeah. So
that actually, I wasn't thinking it wouldn't, but that actually works, and it works fast.
Yeah, and if you want, you can really test this with a tight loop and just print it like crazy. But this will really help you. Just be conscious that if you're doing multiple endpoints and you also want to take advantage of the latency, that this order needs to be different where you roll it out. So this is going to be in your app settings. The nice thing I think it's from .NET 6, since the builder there, that you can get your .configuration already, and it will take the current one. You used to have to do some build configuration and then build it again, and you can just get it, and all the sources that are available since that moment you can run. So you can read your JSON, and after that you can still do the app configuration, just adds it in later.
That's actually a really nice improvement,
detail.
Because I mean, there's so much code I can throw away now.
That added a lot of code, like and it felt also really not perfect, and it looked dirty, and like, what are you doing here?
It felt a bit icky.
Yeah, a bit icky. Yeah. But know that it's there. For me, it's still now in preview, the package in preview, but it's working. Like I tested it already, building it into the applications. I hope they won't change too much when going GA, but we'll see. And interesting to figure out what this will mean for the other feature with configuration references.
Yeah, so maybe they're going to have an option where you specify multiple references in a specifically separated way.
Or the reference will actually say, oh, this is your primary reference, but on problematic moments we will actually do the same, because we have the metadata to know what the other endpoints will be. But if they have that, then I think they can roll back the multiple endpoint option. Yeah. So
we'll see where they go from here. But
that's
for now, this is really powerful stuff that I think a lot of people watching this could benefit from. So thanks very much for showing us.
You're welcome.
And thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.